Everyone has that kind of effort moment where you're just like, I'm going all in. On campus, we had no healthy food options at all. I had always worked in restaurants growing up. I looked at what was out there and I was like, I think I can do this better. In the beginning, I was cooking the food, delivering the food, and I was figuring out business on the fly. First day of service, I hired a cook and like 2 other employees, and I thought they were gonna come in and they were gonna cook food. I show up at 5 a.m., no one showed up. One of the biggest blessings I've ever received on this earth was finding out my purpose, doing what I'm doing, which is nourishing communities around Florida, soon around this nation, to help America get healthy again.
There's a heightened sense of awareness of health now, and people are finally paying attention to what they're putting into their bodies. I think we're about to ride the wave of health.
There's countries that I've gone to that 50% of the population is starving. Everyone is deserving of a meal. If I can make an impact on that, I mean, to me, I've lived a great life.
I'm Manning Sumner. I've lived my life by one motto: no days off. No days off is never taking a day off on you. It's a commitment to becoming your best self. Get ready to be inspired to do the same. This is the Big Dawgs with Manning Sumner. Sunny, we're here.
Let's get it, man.
I appreciate you doing this, man, especially on a Saturday. I know you're a busy man, so.
I've been looking forward to this all year.
Oh, man, thank you. I want to tell just the people out there a little bit about yourself, just kind of set the mood. So you were coming from Coral Springs, Florida.
Yep.
You attended Florida State University, Seminoles, all right. Earning a degree in exercise physiology with a minor in hospitality. That's actually really cool. I love that combination. We'll get into the hospitality stuff in a minute. As the current founder and CEO, you created, am I saying it right? Vale
Yep.
Food Company, which, by the way, I've experienced. It's phenomenal. A rapidly growing, healthy, fast, casual restaurant with 10 locations in Florida. Salute to that. Vale Food Company offers build your own bowls, acai bowls, and poke bowls, and also provides meal planning, delivery, and catering services. In 2014, at 21 years old, and while still in college, you set out to solve the problem of making healthy food delicious, convenient, affordable, and diverse. At the same time, Tallahassee had no options for healthy food. With little business knowledge and startup capital, your passion to make a difference propelled you forward through the trials and tribulations of balancing college, working 3 jobs, and operating a startup. Initially, you launched a meal plan delivery service called Fit Fuel Nutrition while still in college. You grew that business to serve 400 subscribers, managed a sales team of over 10 representatives, and brought in over $500,000 in sales. Salute to you. In 2016, you pivoted to launching the fast casual restaurant model, Vale Food Company in Tallahassee. The college market responded so well that in 2017, you opened 2 more locations in Gainesville and Tampa. The growth continued in 2018 with opening of 1 more location in Tallahassee and another in Jacksonville. In the first quarter of 2019, you opened locations in Fort Lauderdale and another in Tallahassee. At 26 years old, you won the Governor's Young Entrepreneur Award. A quote from you: I've always been passionate about health and nutrition. I'm passionate because Vale is the future. We're a one-stop shop for healthy food. You don't have to go to the poke shop, the acai bowl place, and your favorite bowl restaurant. We have everything in one spot, and our customers love that. Imagine if Whole Foods and Chipotle had a baby. I love that. That's what Vale is. I'm excited for the future because the next step is to take this brand across America and make healthy food that's delicious, convenient, affordable, and diverse all at the same time. Another one of your quotes: a man constantly exceeds his level. Absolutely love that. That's what the No Days Off is all about.
Of course.
I love this because as I read your I love how people read your stories. And then I'm sure because when people do it to me and you're listening, you're like, you know what all behind the scenes that I'm saying that that's not in there. So
it's all the flashbacks.
Exactly. And I would love to dive into that. I think first and foremost for me, that I would love to hear is just when that moment happened for you where you wanted to do your own thing.
So, I mean, for me, I was always a very ambitious, person, growing up. When I went to college, I was really on the pre-med route. So I never even had an idea of doing a business at all. I was like, I'm going to go be a doctor. That in my family growing up, it's you're a lawyer, you're a doctor. You have to choose, something that was going to be a respected, career. And, of course, business, owners were respected too, but I was going, okay, I was a very, young person. I was like 18 to 21 years old. I'm trending towards going to med school and be a doctor. So I had my kind of aha moment when I was taking a little summer vacation in Chicago. I go to Chicago and, I'm thinking I brought enough money. I brought maybe $1,000 for a 10-day trip in Chicago.
Oh, God. That didn't last very long.
By day 5, I was already tapped out, staying at my friend's house, in the suburbs of Chicago.
And by the way, we've all made that mistake before.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, I was 21 at the time, and I was had a lot of time at my friend's house, and I started thinking of ideas, and I was very kind of fired up. I'm like, I have to do something now. Like, I have to figure out something now. I don't think I can wait 4 years of med school, then residency, to start taking action into my life.
Right.
So I noticed, on campus, these meal plans were starting to become more popular in Tallahassee specifically because we had no healthy food options at all. So all the students were signing up on different meal plan programs. And I looked at what was out there and I was like, I think I can do this better. I had always worked in restaurants growing up, and I looked at what was out there and I was like, I bet I can figure this out. I found out while I was in Chicago, one of the companies were actually closing down. So there was this now void in the market. So I was like, it was like now or never, right? Like, let's capture these customers that are out there looking for a company. And I said, okay, like, let me start now. And the moment that I started, I didn't know 100%, I'm going to do this 100%, but I just started figuring out step by step, and one thing led to another. And it was kind of like this, puzzle for me that I was like, okay, I need to find a kitchen. Wait, I need staff. Wait, what else do I need? And I was figuring out business on the fly. But I remember when I started and I saw the response when we went from 20 people subscribers initially and it doubled the next week to 40. I had kind of like the light bulb moment in my brain. I was like, I need to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Yeah. But I need to figure this out because this can be special.
When you had like the early stages, were you operating kind of like crazy? Like, I'm sure there was some. Oh, yeah. Were you like cooking in your kitchen or something, or
no?
How?
So like, I convinced a sports bar in Tallahassee. They were no longer doing any kind of food program, really. Okay. So they were just a bar, but they had this kitchen that they were not using. So I said, hey, let me sublease this kitchen from you. I'll pay you, X amount, $1,000 to $1,500 a month. I was like, let me come in here and work overnight, kind of like baker shift hours.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I would have my staff go in there at midnight, and they would work until 5 a.m., 6 a.m. when no one was in the bar or whatever. Right. So we were, that's the deal that I negotiated because I always thought, I was like, well, at the time I was living in a fraternity house. We didn't even have a kitchen. So I had to find a kitchen. So at that time, I was able to kind of get that deal done. But yes, in the beginning I was cooking the food, delivering the food, doing everything, doing sales, marketing.
Right. In the beginning, you have to do it all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the craziest thing about it is the first day of service, I hired a cook and like 2 other employees, and I thought they were going to come in and they were going to cook food. I show up at 5 a.m. No one showed up. So then I looked to my right and left at my, partners at the time for my meal plan business. And I said, I guess we're cooking.
Yeah, right.
Let's get to it. And it was madness. And then I had to go to class after. And then,
And have you had any background with cooking?
Yeah, I had a very basic level, background. But I grew up working in a Jamaican restaurant. I've worked from fast food to some fine dining restaurants. So I had some experience, but not nearly like the level that I needed. Yeah. Either. So
would you call yourself a foodie?
I'm definitely a foodie. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Yeah, me too.
But the early days were absolutely crazy, and it was a lot of hustle and grit, really. Yeah. And you kind of get addicted to something new, right? For me, it was like, wow, you're seeing something kind of come to fruition that was an idea, and then you're like, okay, like that puzzle factor. Okay, I think I can fix this and solve this, and you kind of get addicted to that, and that's kind of what propelled me forward. Is like, if I can just solve a few things every day, I'm going to figure this out.
And that's business. That's business. It's becoming a problem solver daily.
Exactly.
It was interesting when you said you were in Chicago and you're like, I got to do this now, because I'll never forget. I went to LA and I was thinking I was going to be an actor and a model and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was in my friend's apartment, I was staying in my friend's apartment that lived in the Valley. And I remember being in his shower, and it was one of those showers that, like, as you're showering, the water gets higher and higher because the plumbing's so bad. Yeah. And I remember looking down, and the water was, like, all the way up past my calves. And I remember looking down at the, like, muddy kind of, I mean, it wasn't muddy, but it was like, it wasn't dirt. Gross. It was gross. And I was like, I can't live like this. I was like, I have to make money. I was like, forget casting and, like, the struggle and being like damn near homeless. I was like, that's just not me. And I remember having that light bulb moment of, I got to make money, and just, that was kind of like that moment where I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. And at the time I had no idea what that would look like, but I knew I've had to do something that involved making money, because I didn't want to live like that,
No, absolutely. Yeah. Everyone has that kind of effort moment where you're just like, I'm going all in.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So you have this, you would call it like a meal prep company, right?
Initially, yeah.
And then when was the moment where you're like, okay, I need to pivot and start the restaurant?
As you know, in a college market, those students or customers are turning over. They graduate, they leave. So for me, I did the meal plan thing for 4 years, from 2012 to 2016, and towards 2015, that's when I realized I was like, I'm knowing less and less people here. Like my network, like we have to remarket, and like our targeting strategy and growing this, it was starting to taper off a little bit. Like we had achieved some great success where we grew the clientele to 500 people. But then I realized, I was like, wow, I mean, I don't know how long I can keep on staying relevant. Right. I was like meeting with my interns at the time at a Starbucks, and they also said your network is also shrinking. Like over every year, you're going to be 1 year more removed from the campus kind of, people and community. So I said, if we can convince 500 people to sign up on a meal plan, that's enough validation to open a restaurant. We're putting out 1,500 meals on a daily basis. That's more than a lot of restaurants. Yeah. So I got the idea in my brain and I just ran with it. And then the same thing happened. It was a puzzle. How do you open a restaurant? Right. No one, I didn't have any mentors to kind of lean on. I just read a lot of books and I just did my own research. And what I did, honestly, looking back, was probably the most unorthodox approach to starting a restaurant, but I figured it out and I created some extremely out of the box solutions.
And what was the really unorthodox thing?
I approached a restaurant that was in like a very, very prime spot in Tallahassee. And I looked at it and they had too much square footage. Okay. Like they had 5,000 square feet for a bagel restaurant, for a bagel shop, essentially. Okay. And I was like, that's
a big ass bagel shop.
I was like, there's just no way they need this. Right. So I actually approached the ownership, the landlord and the owners of the shop. And I found out like they had an interest in downsizing. And we actually were able to negotiate a sublease for a partial amount of their property. So I took 2,500 square feet. They kept 2,500. And I was actually the solution in their lawsuit. They were like in a pending lawsuit. Oh, wow. And we came in to solve it. But I also had some conditions. I told that company, I said, listen, I don't have the capital to put a Type 1 hood system in here.
I was just going to ask you, did you share the kitchen and stuff? No.
So we split everything directly in half, but we had to create two separate kitchens. Right. So obviously, staff isn't like commingled or anything. And I convinced them to put a Type 1 hood system in, and I bought certain pieces of equipment from theirs. I ended up flipping some pieces of equipment to make some money. Like I couldn't get this was back in 2016. Still banks were not even remotely interested in having a conversation with any startup restaurant.
I was about to say, like startup restaurant is very similar to startup gym. Yeah. Banks are like, go away.
Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have the nicest conversations ever, but that leads to a no. Yeah. But I quickly found out it was a waste of time. So I convinced them. I said, hey, I need some help financing some of this renovation for me to open. and I was able to
with the bagel restaurant.
Yeah, and I paid them back, and I was able to do that through like our deal, our sublease. We drew it in there, and then I took out a couple loans from, friends that I knew. I was like, hey man, like, I'm good for it. I'll pay you back. I paid them all back within 1 year.
Amazing.
And for me, it was just a lot of hustle and grit. But I had to figure out construction on the fly. I had to figure out permitting. I had to figure out marketing. I had to figure out training, operations, all these things. And it was insane. We actually hit a point where we were never going to open. Our permitting process took so long. Go figure.
I'm smiling and laughing because I'm seeing myself. Like our stories are very similar, in terms of like learning on the fly.
Yeah.
Like everybody asks me like, how did you get your business sense? And I'm like, I learned it on the fly, like
failing fast, solving faster.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it was actually, we ended up opening April 20th of 2016, the restaurant.
Okay.
But leading up to that, we were running out of cash. I was running off of the meal plan cash flows, and we were supposed to be
You still doing the meal plans while you were trying to get the restaurant open?
Yes.
Okay.
So we were still generating,
right,
but we were exhausting those cash flows to get open. So in March, we hit a massive cash flow crunch. And I was like, I don't know how the hell we're going to get this thing open for business. And I came up with just this like insane idea. And probably 30 days before we opened, I was a certified lunatic. Like no human should have ever talked to me, because I was on a mission that like sleep for 4 hours, wake up, like grind it out the entire day to figure solutions out.
Yeah.
Repeat. I created a marketing strategy. I said for meal plans, because I needed cash fast.
Right.
I said, buy 3 months of meals. I'll give you a month free. So people were paying me, $1,000, $1,500 up front. And I was like, if I can get 10 or 20 people, like this will solve my cash flow.
I have to stop you for a second, because it's exactly how I used to do personal training.
Yeah.
So back in the day, to get cash flow, I, instead of selling like, one training session at a time, I would sell like 3 months of training. So you get all the money up front to help your cash flow. So,
exactly. Yeah. And I created that solution, and that was the
And it worked.
Yeah, it worked. Yeah, we got people because it was a great deal. A month of food for free. I mean, like to a college student, that's insane value.
Right.
So we generated like $20,000 in like 7 days. And that was what we needed to actually get the restaurant open.
Okay. And when you open the restaurant, I mean, most people think, you spend all this time getting a business open, and then you open the doors and it's like, money just comes flying in. So explain when you open the doors, like kind of the what happened.
So my staff had 1 day of training. The night before. I said, guys, this is how it's going to work. Bowls with bases, veggies, and proteins. I showed them portioning for like maybe a couple hours.
Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow. It was opening day. And that on opening day, the word spread like wildfire. And we still had our reach with our current meal plan subscribers. So we were able to send them out, emails and things saying, come to our restaurant, and send them promotions to come to the restaurant. So we had an active audience to drive in. And it was really on day one, some of my closest friends and, a lot of our like loyal customers were our first customers in the restaurant, having food. And then they spread the word virally, word of mouth went crazy on a campus, especially because it can really go far there,
right?
Because you have a contained kind of community, right? Tapping Miami is way more difficult than tapping a college market. Word can fly there.
Yeah.
So it was actually the biggest relief, because I had just gone through 30 days of just like crazy stress, and I was like, thank God we have customers, coming in.
No, that's huge. I want to go back a little bit. Where did Vale come from?
So with my first brand, it was extremely like masculine oriented, fit, fuel, nutrition. And I noticed that women liked our food, but they didn't want to do business with our brand because women were not in the same mentality as they are today, where like fitness and gym, is like also appealing to them.
Right.
These were the days back in 2012 where women were just going to the gym on the treadmill and on the elliptical, and like they would just go do some core and cardio, and that's it.
Yeah.
And they would be there for like an hour, you know, and that was their strategy to be fit.
Right.
So for us, well, for me, when I would close down that company and I opened Vale, I said, I need to figure out a name that's unisex, that's going to be appealing to both genders, you know, and all genders. but we, you know, when I was going through my research, I came up with some horrible names, but
What's one? Give me one. That was.
I don't even know why. I was just like the number 8. I was like, is like a infinite kind of sign.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is like 8th food or 8th plate. And I got too obsessed on that. And I was like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. So I like, you know, that's a really funny thing. But I actually was sitting every day in a Whole Foods for I took 3 months off in between Fit Fuel and Vale. And I sat every day in a Whole Foods for like 8 to 10 hours. And I really love the ethos of Whole Foods, where, you know, there are a lot about sustainability, high quality food, you know, and the environment, and a lot of other, you know, just aspects that they were doing. So I would sit in their cafe. They also had a really good promotion about it was like $1 hot coffee, and I love coffee. So I would sit there and just get refills of, you know, hot coffee.
Yeah.
I'd be eating just hard boiled eggs. So my daily cost was like $4,
right,
you know, for me,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
eating hard boiled eggs and coffee, sitting in a cafe. And I Googled, like, I was like, okay, old English words, like very like cool. Like I was always like into like, you know, old English, like other like, you know, old time words.
My original logo was in Old English.
Okay, there you go. So, I mean, I was looking up like mythology and all these other things, but I was going through a list, and as dramatic as it sounds, I'm going through alphabetically, A all the way down, and I get to V, and I see Vale, and the meaning was relating to the earth or earthly. And I thought about it, and I was like, okay, well, I want to use biodegradable containers and be a sustainable company and build a company that has values. I was like, okay, so we're earthy in the sense of sustainability.
Yep.
And I was thinking as well, all of our food is all natural and high quality and comes from the earth. It's not like these chemicals and like something that's awful for you with preservatives loaded on it and masking like it's food. So I was like, okay, our food comes from the earth. I was like, I think I can do something with this. And then later on, when I built the restaurants, I said, I want the interior design to be very like earth colors and earth tones. So we brought it full circle, and we try to like be sustainable with our build outs as well. So I said, okay, I think I can adapt this definition to mean to live an earthly life. And that is our approach. And that's how we bring it full circle, is with the sustainability commitment with us, with our food, and then also with our interior design, you know, creating an ambiance and energy that's going to be more like earth kind of feel, and a more relaxed, you know, comfortable ambiance versus just, you know, someone coming in and feeling like they're in like a sterile fast food chain kind of feel.
Right. I love the intentionality of all that.
Yeah.
Like, I love it.
You got to be detail driven, you know.
100%.
And for me, I think that's what, it was just the perfect word, and, you know, that's where it came from.
All right. So now you have one location. When did you realize I want to grow? I want to do the next location?
Right away.
Right away.
Right
Okay.
away.
All right.
Because I mean, for me, I'm sure you can relate. The most addictive drug for an entrepreneur is success.
Yeah, definitely.
Is growth.
Right. Yeah.
And
next thing.
Yeah, exactly. What's next?
What's next?
Yeah. What's next? So for me, I got hooked on that drug where I'm like, okay, like I can do this, you know, not having the infrastructure or anything to scale. I was just like, oh, I can do this in Gainesville. I can do this in Tampa. And
did you already have kind of the map in your head of where to go next?
Absolutely
or was
not.
that just kind
my approach to growth is 100% unorthodox, and I do not recommend it. For the record, for everyone listening, I do not recommend it, but it's what I chose. I said, okay, I'm in a college market. I know I can tap another college market. So let me do that. And initially, I just said, okay, let me go there. Let me do some research. Let me find a location. I found a location that was next to a Chipotle. I was like, Chipotle wouldn't open a store here if it wasn't a busy area. So I just used that validation at the time as my real estate search and went and opened up a location there. But I also didn't want to get stuck living in Tallahassee. I was living there already for 7 years in my early 20s, And, me, I'm thinking, I'm like, I don't want to end up living here permanently. Nothing against Tallahassee. I love Tallahassee. It's always going to be a home for me. I have a home there.
Okay.
So for me, I love Tallahassee. But at that time, I felt like I needed to experience more growth. And I needed to get out of that smaller city and expand my horizons into bigger cities. And that really came to fruition when I went to Tampa. And I went to Tampa and I saw, oh, wow, our food is not only for college kids. It's the working professionals, families, and we're seeing...
Was Tampa the second location?
The third.
Third.
So we went second was Gainesville.
All right.
And then I waited another, 4 or 5 months after Gainesville, said, let's get right into Tampa.
And so at this time, how were you raising capital?
It was extremely hand to mouth. The store in Tallahassee was doing extremely well. So we were really parlaying profits into the next store. And then in Tampa as well, we had enough business credibility at that time to then get a small loan to be able to do the Tampa build out. And it was...
Do you have any partners at this time? Or
No.
Okay.
No.
So it's just you.
Just me. And I started, solo on that because it was with Vale. I've always been solo. And for me, like going into the Tampa market, the Tampa store is probably one of my hardest stores I've ever opened in my entire career because...
To this date?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's up there.
Is it because of
the whole list is traumatizing
permitting and construction and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Tampa was going through an insane boom 2017 because they had just announced like their Water Street district and all this development that was coming. So all the construction companies in Tampa were booming, flush, and busy.
Right.
They did not care about my $5,000 job, $10,000 job. They're like, I have a $100,000 job down the street. So we couldn't even get people to help us do the build out. So we had to do the majority of the build out ourselves, like literally boots on the ground. My team, kudos to the people working with me at that time because we were 12 hours a day doing construction and assisting, the people that we had. We had to build our own essentially elevator shaft for the hood system to expel the grease air out through the roof because the city of Tampa wouldn't let us poke it out of the side of the building because the consumption of, for people.
Right.
So it took everything out of me. Everything, blood, sweat, tears, exhaustion. And the best moment was when we opened. Our first customer was the Mayor Bob Buckhorn, of Tampa. And he came in and we were so slammed every single day for months.
Amazing.
Like, yeah, it was because the word just spread like wildfire and we were opened in downtown Tampa, which was a massive food desert in terms of healthy food.
Okay.
So, it was an incredible feeling after, but the ride was very tumultuous where it was, we went from this like insane build out process and, running out of cash and being tight to then being super busy and flush with it. And it was a roller coaster. The early days in general, well, I would say from 2016 to 2019 is when we went from 1 to 6 stores, was a absolute roller coaster of emotions across the board.
How long does it typically take for you from the time you get delivered the space to opening for your build outs? And I know it varies, but a typical build out.
A typical build out from if we sign the lease and we have the drawings done.
Yeah, like the moment you start.
Nowadays, it's 4 months, 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that was a year process.
Yeah.
Minimum a year process.
Because you learn what not to do, what to do, and you get better at it every time you do a new location.
Yeah, and I'm sure same for you, right? When you 100%. Opened your first gym to now opening this mega facility here, that must have been a crazy learning curve for you too, right?
Every day is a learning curve, right? Like every day I learn something new, and then especially with construction.
Yeah, of course. And what most people don't realize about restaurants and why banks don't lend to them, why there is a high failure rate, is because the restaurants lose all their money before they open.
Yeah.
Because they're getting ripped off from every avenue.
The
construction people are overcharging you if they know you're a mom and pop and you don't know your numbers. Your produce company and your food suppliers are giving you the worst pricing possible. So like the uphill battle that you have to climb to compete in restaurants is insane. In the beginning, like you have to be an extremely tenacious person to be in this business and industry for the long haul because you're just getting ripped off every avenue.
Yeah, I think the statistics for any small business is 50 50% of small businesses only last a year and a half, but I think restaurants and gyms, that's increased to like 80%.
80 to 90.
Yeah, it's 80, 90%, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, just the fact that you've been in business as long as you have, and I've been in business as long as I have, kudos to us, right?
I know, man, yeah.
I mean, it's not easy out there, not easy.
It really isn't. I mean, what would you say is like, the real credit to your, tenure? How do you stay, so passionate in it for this long?
I think with the mindset of improvement, and then just always showing up, and no matter what happens. And I would say and I'm sure you dealt with this too, is 2020 was the biggest moment for businesses, right? I mean, restaurants, gyms, any small business, because they actually literally shut us down.
Yeah.
And I think the willingness to not quit on any of my locations, any of my staff, any of the dream like that, I refused to quit. I refused to stop doing what I'd been doing for 12 years.
Yeah.
I think that was like another validation that's why I was in the position to not even quit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's really
once you go through 2020 and like that period, I mean,
feel like you can do anything.
You can do anything.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, and you also figure out, who you want to take on the ride with you.
Yeah.
Like, if you know what I mean? Like, it's like you see people's true colors during tough times. You see if they're going to be ride or die, or if they're jumping ship.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
That opened my eyes to a lot of, fake loyal people.
Yeah, I mean, people is the toughest part of the business. You know, I credit you. I mean, I think that you have some of the most genuine, great, kind-hearted people that work with you and that are really building the brands of No Days Off and Legacy. How do you get them to buy in? How do you get them to commit so hard? Because the conversations I have without you is like, man, this guy has instilled these values.
Yeah, that is a constant, and it's funny because, I mean, first of all, thank you for saying that, and it means the world to me, and I hope my brother listens to this because it'll mean the world to him, because I couldn't do this without him. Also, he's basically like kind of like the head of operations, and I think it's Peyton and I, we talk about it all the time. Like, our staff probably behind our back probably can't stand us, and I think that's part of it. It's like, if you don't like conflict, if you don't like challenge, if you don't like accountability, then you better not be a leader. You better not be in management, because we're not here to be liked. We're here. So how I look at it is, every single person that comes into my organization, I do not see them as they are. I see them as what they can become.
For sure.
And so for me, I see this like blank slate, like this person that is stepping into opportunity. And then it's my job to give them the tools to be able to not only help themselves, but then obviously help us as well grow this company. But the first thing I want to do is help them grow as a person. Because if I can help them grow as a human being, grow in their routine, grow in their habits, grow in their relationships, and all these things that life presents itself, then they're probably going to be a better employee.
Absolutely.
So we always lead with that first. We have required reading. We have a training manual. And, a lot of the required reading, I'm sure my staff is like, why the heck am I reading Ego is the Enemy and Leader That Had No Title and, all these like kind of almost self-help books. Yeah. But what it's doing is, again, it's improving the person that you're asking to do a job. And then also too, it's the consistent message. I can show you videos back before Instagram of me talking about what No Days Off is, and it's the same message and the same. I mean, we literally are repeating ourselves constantly. It's Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day. And sometimes that gets frustrating. Sometimes it's like, are these people think I'm crazy? Like, are they looking at me like, here he goes again? Like I say it all the time. Every time I give like a speech, I feel like my staff and everybody around me is like, oh God, here he goes again, But I realize that I can't stop, because it is making a difference. It is making an impact. And when you say things that you're saying from your experience, without me being there, without me like whispering in their ear, they're doing it now on their own, because of the things that we are instilling in them, it's just proof that it's working. And so I would just say it's that. It's never giving up on people too. You know, like we're all human. We all make mistakes. And I mean, I would say the bigger you get, you have to be a little bit more quicker to identify people that are just going to continue making mistakes.
Yeah.
But I think early on, I really allowed people to make mistakes. And if you don't let people make mistakes, then you're constantly going to be micromanaging them and kind of hovering over them, and they're never going to improve. So you said early, fail fast. And in the failing, in the making mistakes, they're going to be able to learn from that, and then hopefully they don't make the same mistake again, and then they're all of a sudden they're a better employee for you. So
absolutely. I mean, the biggest word that I say, and like I smiled a lot during what you were saying, because I really felt those words. For me, I know when my staff knows I'm going on a long tangent and I'm really harping on a specific message,
right?
And sometimes it's a detail. It's a detail that's affecting the guest. But for me, it matters because
everything matters.
Everything matters. And then also that detail can turn into a mountain if you allow it. It can stack up. If you start just letting details slide.
The domino
effect.
Yeah,
and you don't set that precedent of what is your standard. That to me is so critical, because what's separating you from another company is ultimately your standards and your values. So for what I say to my team is the word that I'm using, especially this year in 2025, is alignment. We need to have 100% alignment across the brand, across the company.
I like that a lot.
Because look, you can have great people working with you, but if you're not aligned on the same mission and the same goals, short-term or long-term, you're never going to be executing at a high level.
Yep.
So for me, I'm always asking my team, and we're doing touch bases, sometimes now shorter touch bases, 30 minutes, 20-minute corporate, touch bases, just to make sure we are 100% aligned. Because when you're doing high vol, where you're implementing so many new things, as every young brand always does, it can sometimes be overwhelming for your team. So you have to make the time to prioritize that alignment time to make sure that, okay, the ship is moving forward.
Yeah.
It's not drifting side to side. It's not going backwards, right?
Yep. And also, you don't have people paddling the wrong direction or not paddling at all, because the ship is going to go further if everybody's in sync.
Absolutely.
If everybody's aligned with the same rowing flow and the same. So I love that. Yeah, that's really cool. So do you do like words of the year, this like that?
Yeah,
I've been
do
doing
too.
that for like 7 years. Yeah,
I do as well.
Yeah.
Last year was execution. This year is alignment.
Okay, great.
So,
last year for us was enthusiasm.
Okay.
And this year is no days off.
Love
and
it.
So it's either a word or a phrase.
Yep.
And the reason why I chose no days off this year is that it was, again, we talked about it before we started, is that there was something in the air this year of just a massive momentum. I don't know if it was, opening this place or the water brand or whatever that we're doing, where I was like, we really need to own who we are and own what no days off means to us. Because there's 6.5 million people hashtagging no days off a day on Instagram, but I think they probably, more than likely, a lot of them are no days off in the grind, the hustle, and this notion that you never can take a day off kind of thing. And for us, it's more than that. It's like never take off day off on yourself, on you, on those around you, and it could be a spa day, it could be going to the beach, it could be vacation, but it could be being intentional with your family. Like, that's what no days off is.
I love that message.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Actually, I don't think I've heard of that, the totality of that meaning until now. That's amazing.
That's what no days off is always meant to me. Is no days off is never taking a day off on you. It's a commitment to becoming your best self.
Wow.
It's the quote on the can. It's something that I really believed in. And it was almost like one of those moments where you knew you were living this no days off lifestyle before you even came up with the no days off slogan.
Yeah.
And what it is, it's like, I feel like we all take life for granted. And it's always in the moments of sadness or, tragedy where we, decide to, now I'm going to live intentional. Now I'm going to pay attention to the details. Now I'm, and instead it's like, no, and it's almost like, like when we celebrate people too late, like when someone dies, that's when we celebrate them, and it's like, no, we should be celebrating life every single day and being grateful for the fact that we can make an impact every single day that we're given this breath. But again, it's like you say it and you talk about it, And then life happens.
Of course.
And then it's like, oh, I'm in a bad mood, and so I'm not going to live that way. Or I'm, well, today I'm not really going to do. And instead, that has to be top of mind. And so for me and my company, it was just, this was the year where I was like, we are putting the
flag in the
ground that this is what No Days Off is. This is what the world needs to rally behind, and we want everybody to never take a day off on themselves.
That's honestly beautifully said, and
thank you.
I can feel the energy. You know, and I also think that the message behind that so many people need to hear and also embrace into their lifestyle.
Yeah,
because you don't know how many days you're promised.
It's so true. It's so
really
true.
Ultimately,
and you also don't know, like in this moment, I want to make sure that I'm leaving you better than you walked in here.
Absolutely.
Because it might be our last moment. It might be,
know.
You know what I mean? And it's like, why not think like that? And I know it sounds like a little heavy or, most people are like, chill, bro. It's not that serious. But it is that serious.
No, it is. It is.
And that's what I feel like.
That's intentional, though.
Exactly.
That's just really being present and being intentional. And I think that's such an important skill to have, in business too, is understanding that I talk to a lot of people who are business owners, and they don't have the same level of passion that I have, for my company, because I live, breathe, and sleep this type of lifestyle.
Right.
And I'm sure you do too. And I meet people and they're like, oh, no, I'm not really that into it anymore. I'm thinking of doing something else. And I'm like, man, remember why you got into this in the beginning.
First place. Exactly.
And don't just make a rash decision on something you're feeling temporary. Really allow yourself to process something fully, to really make sure that you're doing something you want to do. Because I think one of the biggest blessings I've ever received on this earth was finding out my purpose, and is doing what I'm doing, which is nourishing communities around Florida, and soon, hopefully to be around this nation to help America get healthy again, right? Get back to the fundamentals and principles of nourishing our communities and creating longevity through nutrition. But, for me, that passion piece, you can feel it. I tell people all the time, you can go to other restaurants, go eat there,
right.
Go try their food. And maybe some of their items could be better than ours. But I promise you, the company that I'm building, we are getting better every day. We are compounding. And my customers that have had our food in 2016 that are eating our food now, they can tell you, wow, it has completely transformed. Our food back in the day was not nearly as good as it is now.
Right.
But
which is it's the same thing.
You should evolve.
I had a 2,000 square foot no AC gym when I first opened.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Of course, if you're not improving, what are you doing? So
exactly. And something that we, as owners sometimes don't realize is that our guests do see that, and they are rallying around your greatness and your growth because they see how much you care about them to make these improvements.
Right.
We're not, for example, I've always used extra virgin olive oil with our cooking, and I've prioritized that because I eat the food every day.
Yeah.
Anyone that asks me, hey, what are you doing for lunch? I'm eating Vale every day. They're like, are you sick of it? No, I just create new things.
Right, exactly.
I create new items. So for me, I eat our food every day, and I don't put something in someone's body that I wouldn't put in my own. So we have spent, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars more on this higher quality oil, but it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
At the end of the day in business, you got to think about, forget the money, forget the certain accolades that come with success. Are you actually helping people?
Yep. And are you doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Because ultimately it will come back to you.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of like when we decided to do the water. It took us 2 years to actually develop the water that we were going to put out to the world, because we wanted to make sure that we did not, skip any steps.
Yeah.
We wanted the purest, best water.
And water is pretty intimate. It's like food.
Bro, it is. And people
don't
realize
70% of you?
how hard it is to make water, like good, pure water.
Yeah.
It's actually very hard. That tastes good.
Talk to me a little bit more about that process. The 2-year process, going through everything, what made you decide on this water? And I'm not even trying to plug this in, but I said to you, I love the level of carbonation in this water because this is perfect for me. Yeah.
It was very intentional. Like I said, I wanted an everyday sparkling, that you could pound while you're working out or just at the beach or whatever. And shout out to all the sparkling waters, because I love sparkling water, but I think for me, most of the sparklings out there, I find to be like good at fine dining and like, after you take a sip of wine and then kind of,
refresh
helping your palate. Exactly. So I wanted something different. But as far as the water goes, like when we came up with the idea and we knew we were going to do it, it's really interesting how like, I always believe that if you're, again, to your point earlier, if you're doing the right thing and you're being intentional, then life has a way of bringing you the right people too in your life because of the way you're just doing things. And so we had this moment where someone actually introduced us to a guy that was doing water for Pepsi in Venezuela. And I guess if you can do water in Venezuela, you can do water anywhere, right?
Correct.
And he was kind of like one of these water nerds. And he had this whole setup in Pembroke Pines. He actually developed his whole reverse osmosis system himself. And it was like a container ship. And he was explaining to us how it all works. And he had very, very broken English, and it was hard to understand him. But he was just a phenomenal guy. And it was really, in the beginning, it was like crafting beer. Like it was it was a process of like adding a little calcium here, adding a little potassium here. Like it's literally like, and you dump it in the tank and like, and then you go through this process of taste testing. Then you do blind taste testing, and then you put your water, you put your Evians, your Smart Water, your Saratogas, you put the waters out there, and then and do blind taste testing. And we kept doing it. And then one day when we felt like we really had the formula, we did this blind taste test, and I'll never forget it because our water was number 2. And about 16 people, number two. And it was like a chill, chills going up your line. Like they're picking
that validation.
They're picking our water. They're picking our water. And we just knew, okay, this is it. But to your point, we're still trying to improve that. Like we're still, seeing, are there ways we can make it even better? And we're still going through this process. But now we've upgraded to a co-packing facility in North Carolina. So now the water is coming from the mountains of North Carolina into Lake Norman, I believe it is, into this 7-step reverse osmosis process. And one of the things we found is that if you really think about premium waters today, right? Yeah. Premium water today mostly is coming from mountains, springs, Iceland, icebergs, all this stuff, right? Well, unfortunately, our world is being contaminated. Our world is being polluted. So the days of pure natural water are coming to an end. Yeah. So I really believe that we're going to be we are the first processed of, making a reverse osmosis process water, premium water. Yeah. And I think we're doing it at a very high level. And so it goes through this 7-step reverse osmosis process. It's hit with tonal pasteurization. It's hit with ultraviolet light. It's literally taking all the impurities out of it, all the metals, the microplastics, the PFAS, like all this stuff that's in our water. You would be, it's crazy of what's in our water, right? And then that's where the proprietary blend of essential minerals go back in the water for the function and taste. Nice. And that's why you have such a soft, like our still has such a soft mouthfeel with absolutely no aftertaste. Yeah. And that's the thing that I love about our water. Zero aftertaste. When you drink out of a plastic bottle, it's really gross. And I would say this, the only way to really know how good our water is to drink it for about a month only, and then try to go back and drink other waters.
Well, I'm actually a little bit of a water nerd myself. Okay. And when I was in college, my friends can attest, I would have the 5-gallon, kind of container. I'd take it to Whole Foods. I'd take it to other places and fill up my, reverse osmosis water. Yeah. 5 gallons, because I'm like, I'm not drinking from Tallahassee water faucets and things like that. So I've always been, very knowledgeable about that, those type of things. So I think it's incredible that you guys are focusing on those details, because there is a lot of misinformation out there.
Oh, there's so much. Even our cans, everybody's been kind of attacking us on social media that's saying that our cans are lined in plastic. And we actually pay more money for these cans that do not have the plastic lining.
Well, that's why I actually prefer to drink out of a can, because I found out that every plastic bottle, every single one, has microplastics of some kind.
Here's something crazy. Yeah. That we've learned. Anything that touches plastic has plastic in it.
Correct.
Anything.
Yeah. And
Which is scary.
I know, even for us, like we've changed our cutting boards to wooden cutting boards and like different things in our restaurants because of microplastics.
Right.
And they don't have any new industry standards for commercial cooking, so we're going through cutting boards like crazy, because eventually wooden cutting boards get gross.
Right.
So, but for me, I found out with water bottles specifically, they're marketing a lot of these companies. They market BPA free.
Yeah.
There's another thing called like BPAB or something like that. There's another form of BPA that's still in that bottle. That is just as harmful as BPA.
Yep.
And I remember listening to this and I was like, oh my God, they even tricked me.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
Well, it's like when the Big Crave came out with the cardboard water stuff.
Yeah.
All that's BS too.
Yeah. But like the thing is that they're always finding something, whether it's in water bottles, plastics, or even in food. It's like when someone's grabbing something that's sugar free. I'm like, they're probably
exactly.
I always tell people, I'm like, if you taste it and you taste the sweet sensation in your mouth,
right,
there is something sort of sugar in there.
Exactly.
Some sort of, and like I took organic chemistry and biochemistry, so I learned these things of like, it ends in an OSE, and then they try to change the molecular structure of sugar, and they will create these other things, the sucralose versus dextrose and all, and sucrose and fructose. Like, so for me, like I have the knowledge. I've learned about all the deceptive things that companies do out there, and I feel bad for consumers because they literally are just not. They don't know.
Right.
They think they read the label. It says sugar free, and they're like, "Oh, this is good for me," and I'm like, you're better off having the real thing than putting these other chemicals, into you. But we live, unfortunately, in a very toxic society when it comes to food and beverage in the U.S. and especially with how food and everything is being governed.
For sure. And I think both of us are heading in. This is another thing that I just feel very strongly about with the new administration, with RFK coming out.
Absolutely.
We're heading into this truly, and COVID did this too, 2020 did this too. There's a heightened sense of awareness of health now, and people are finally paying attention to what they're putting into their bodies, and it's only increasing with time. That's why I love conversations like this, so we can start educating people on the importance of healthy food, being in community, getting into the gym, drinking good water. Like, all this stuff is so important. And I think we're about to ride the wave of health.
Absolutely.
And so you're positioned extremely well. I'm positioned extremely well. And I can't wait for us to grow.
Well, I mean, people have to support brands that they know actually give an F about them.
Exactly.
And that's a difference. For me, my happiest moments have been when I'm helping people, not when, oh my God, I bought something for myself. Like for me, like, you mature out of that pretty quickly in business.
You always feel better giving. Always.
Giving. It's like it fills your heart up. And I'll tell you, I had a customer the other day call me from Jacksonville, and my manager said, "Hey, this customer really wants to talk to you." I was like, "Sure, I'll answer it." I was having an awful day. For the record, like
it always happens like that.
Yeah, I'm having an awful day.
You get the DM, that like long DM.
Yeah, I'm like,
oh God.
And I'm talking to her. I'm like, hey, how can I help you? And she's like, I have to tell you something. And I was like, oh God, like what is she about to tell me? She's like, I have eaten at your restaurant 35 days in a row.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay. I was like, and she's like, your restaurant has made an unbelievable amount of impact in my life. I suffer from Crohn's disease.
Oh, wow.
I cannot go and eat at any normal restaurant. And she's
such
like,
a sensitive disease.
Yeah.
With eating.
And she said, she's like, you've made me feel like I can live a normal life again.
Wow.
Going out with my friends.
That's a massive compliment.
Yeah.
Massive.
I was just like, oh my God.
Sure, that made your day better.
Yeah. I was like, okay, passion. Let's go. Turn on.
Yeah.
And I told her, I was like, my promise to you is that we're going to make the company even better. And thank you so much for trusting us. And I'm so happy that you feel incredible after eating our food.
Yep.
And we'll allow her to, we do customizations for our customers. We accommodate every dietary restriction because we want everyone to come into our restaurants feeling welcome. I don't care if you're a meat and potatoes guy, you're a vegan, you're so on and so forth, whatever background you come from, you're welcome at Vale, because for us, when people think of healthy food, they think of a bad stigma of like, oh, it's expensive, it doesn't have variety, it doesn't taste good,
right?
You know, and they think of these cons, you know. And for me, I thought about it, and I told my team actually recently at our company summit, I said, we're feeding the 99%. We're not feeding the 1%. You know, and I keep that in mind because I don't want people to come to our restaurants and be like, oh, I can't eat this because I'm priced out. We have price options for everyone who comes into our restaurant. Whether you want to spend, you know, $10 or $30 per meal, you can get something for you. But we're feeding the 99%. And when I go to my restaurants around the state of Florida, I see a melting pot of people in my restaurants. In Jacksonville, I see construction workers, I see students, I see elderly, I see everyone in our restaurants, and we're creating these micro communities. But I realize we can really make a difference in America by really feeding the 99% and making health accessible.
Accessible, exactly. That's phenomenal. I want you to go back a little bit to you mentioned some books. Like, give me kind of your top 3 books that have helped you. Actually, let's phrase it like this. Give me your top 3 books that helped you kind of be able to start this. And then what would you be your top 3 books now after all the success you've had?
Oh, man. There's so many. There's so many.
I know that.
But I will say for sure, 2 books that come right to my mind in the beginning, like when I was like early 20s, that I absolutely needed to read was Grinding It Out by Ray Kroc.
Okay.
The guy who started McDonald's.
Yep.
52 years old. The book is 10 times better than
the movie. Exactly.
Way
more
better.
Detail. Yeah,
way more intense passion in that book.
So it's so good.
Yeah. So that book was just incredible to really showcase that, one, it doesn't matter your age when you're starting. It really is about that grit and tenacity to just persevere and push through.
Yep.
When you have something that you really want to do, not letting anything stand in your way. Another book that was for me was is like the guy who's pretty much the founder of Stoicism, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
It's on my desk.
Yeah, one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
I've reread it, you know, a few times, and for me, I would. As a young man, I didn't have a real grip on how do I manage stress, right? And in business, there's an unlimited amount of stress
every
that
day
will eat you alive,
Yeah.
you know? And like, you have to, you know, the principles in that book really helped me understand how to control my emotions and govern them versus let them puppet myself. So like, it got to a point where, you know, after I read that book, I remember I was reading it actually on a plane, small plane, prop plane going from Tallahassee to Fort Lauderdale, started getting crazy turbulence.
Oof, those are
crazy turbulence. And
especially in those
I'm reading the book, like I'm reading the book like this, literally. And it's talking about like stress. And it's like, are you in control or not? And it was talking about the principle of like, you know, when situations are out of your control, why are you getting more stressed? Like, why are you attacking yourself?
Yep.
So in that moment, plane having crazy turbulence, I'm not flying the plane.
Yeah, exactly. There's
It's
nothing
going
you can
down.
do. Nothing you can do.
Zero. Why are you tensing up?
Right.
Why are you attacking yourself? Right? Because that's
Yeah.
what stress is. And at that moment, I mean, I was like, okay, you feel freedom almost when you can actually govern your emotions. And it sharpened, it helped me, especially as a young entrepreneur, really sharpen my tact and my strategy to weather those really hard downturns when the world is just crumbling in your world, right? In your business. And, you know, that to me, like, I would say those 2 books specifically are like the first 2 I always think of.
Those are great.
Now, I mean, man, there's so many books. I'm drawing some blanks right now, but I just finished the book on In-N-Out Burger as well.
Okay.
There's 2 other books, Setting the Table by Danny Meyer.
Fantastic.
Incredible.
Yep.
And then there's Unreasonable Hospitality.
I was just about to say that.
I actually, at my company summit, I just gave that book out,
Okay.
you know, to all of my managers because I told them, I was like, guys, yes, we're a fast casual restaurant, but we need to give a high level of service to separate ourselves from these other chains and these other brands
Yep.
where I don't care if I'm serving the guest for 30 seconds to a minute. I want them to feel a connection with our brand, knowing that we care, our people care about them, and that we're there to serve them. And that book was just incredible at really talking about being intentional.
Yes.
You know, about how can you really make someone's day. Yeah. So I would say those two are the more recent ones, but they're worth rereading over and over again.
For sure. And then I just want to end with this. I've been asking this to a lot of guests, and I kind of enjoy the person like kind of thinking about this. So if you had one thing that you wish people knew about you that they don't, what would that be?
Man, that's a tough one.
Right? And I'm telling you, like when someone asks me that, it's like interesting, right? So
I live, breathe, and I really eat, sleep this lifestyle. You know, it's like every aspect of what we're doing matters to me. And I've been doing it over a long time horizon. You know, even when I pre-business, I was always passionate about nutrition. You know, I went to high school. I was a state wrestler. You know, I was always had to be dialed into my nutrition, my diet to make weight and certain things. So at an early age, like I've always been passionate about this. And for me, it's that my organization, not just myself, I have incredible people that are working at Vale who are so committed of making the brand better every single day. And for us, that's our promise. You know, ultimately is that at the end of this year, we're going to be 10 times better a company than we were in the beginning of this year. And that is absolutely aligned with every person on our team at a store level as well. And we're really one of those brands that we're going to do some really incredible things, not because it's cool, not because it's going to make us money. It's because it's the right thing. And it's because for us, nutrition is intimate, just like water, right? For me, like your food, how you're helping someone live and lead a healthy lifestyle. To me, I mean, that is way more fulfilling to me than doing, you know, something for money, you know, alone.
And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that.
And the biggest thing is that I'm not on this earth forever. You're not on this earth forever.
Right.
We're all temporary here. So for me, I want to make a massive impact. I want to actually help the earth. You know, I know that's crazy to say.
I love that.
But for me, we're servicing a state.
Right.
We're feeding a state. You know, we were initially feeding a community. Now it's a state. Then the next level is, okay, let's feed a region of the state. Let's feed the U.S. Then I want to make an impact. I personally believe the concept is great and it can be international. But right now we're hyper focused on the U.S. And my end game, big picture is I want to create some sort of impact for global hunger.
Amazing.
I want to really help that out because I travel around the world. I go around the world looking for new flavors and foods to bring into Vale. And it breaks my heart when I go to certain countries and I see the level of, you know, the disparity of poverty. There's countries that I've gone to that 50% of the population is starving. And for me, it breaks my heart because everyone is deserving of a meal. Definitely. Everyone should be deserving of clean water.
Right.
You know, for me, so if I can make an impact on that, I mean, to me, I've lived a great life.
Mic drop. Thank you, Sunny.